Right, good evening. We're back on two videos for you on this Thursday evening. We've covered the Saturday racing as usual with SD, and now we've got special guest Ande Humphrey, French expert, does a bit of writing on the game. You can find all his work on Twitter. I've got his Twitter on the screen. The Arc. What more do you need to know? We've done a couple of preview videos already on doubles and trebles way back in early June, just after the Derby and Oaks was finished. I said Tarnawa was the bet at 9-1, my most confident anti-post pick ever on the channel, and that's working out okay. And then we did another update video after the York Ebor meeting where I said Adayar was the bet, and that's working out okay as well. But normally that's where my success starts and ends. So we're going to go through pretty much all the runners to start with in the Arc de Triomphe itself. It is on ITV on Sunday, and it is at 3:05. There's 15 runners. There's only 4 from the home contingent, which is a little bit of a disappointment, but we might touch on that with Hump. But first things first, Hump, they might have heard your name quite often on their doubles and trebles because you pop up in the live chat with a couple of snippets now and again. But how are you to be making your debut live on doubles and trebles?
Yeah, really good. Really pleased to be here. Shame, obviously, that we'll touch on it that me and you normally get over there. So would have been hoping to have been on the plane or the train tomorrow, but so be it. Not this year. And what a race we're missing, unfortunately, Smith.
Yeah, I mean, we say it every year, don't we, about the Arc, from June and July and August, if they all turn up, it'll be a cracking race. Well, most of them this year have turned up. We've got the Derby winner that's gone on to win the King George. We've got last year's L'Opera winner and Breeders' Cup winner in Tarnawa. We've got the three-time Group 1 winner Hurricane Lane, most recently in the Ledger. We've got three-time Oaks winner Snowfall. We've got the best horse in Japan. We've got last year's horse of the season pretty much in Love, and the list goes on. So we're going to go through most of the horses. As I mentioned, it does lack some French contenders, particularly at the top of the market. Hunt. What would you have to say about that at this stage?
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but it's been going that way for a couple of years, really. To be honest, since obviously we had a couple, obviously last year where we were missing the O'Brien horses and Sotsas and then Swoop fought out in a bit of a sludge fest, and then obviously Wallgeist the year before. When I was there, he was an older horse to win it, which was a bit of a shocker. But the classic generation haven't been doing too well in France for a good couple of years now. But every year is different. So hopefully we'll have something. Hopefully we'll have something next year, and then hopefully we see a couple of these back again next year as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have been laying into French horses quite a bit this year, but as a bit of a comedy, and they have had a poor year. But as Hunt just said, Sotsas won it last year, Wild Geese won it the year before, both for the home team. So we can't really argue too much. So right, getting stuck into it then. Adayar is the 3-1 favourite. I'm just going off the odds via Racing Post at the moment because odds checkers all over the place. But yeah, Adayar 3-1 favourite. Rightly so, in my opinion. A bit of a shock Derby win. I still can't believe that thing went off 16-1 for the Derby. It was 50-1 in the morning. But as we've said previously, you don't win a Derby by four and a quarter lengths or 4.5 lengths and not be considered a very game contender for the Arc itself. Very much back that up. There was question marks over the Derby form as they were the Oaks form, and he's very much backed that up in the King George on his next start, where he looked like a tank, to be honest. Adayar pulled a little bit early doors, but when he settled for the second half of the race, he's dominated it for me. He was going further clear at the line, keeping on strongly, and he's been a very, very strong contender for this race ever since. Adayar did miss his prep for this race. He was going to run in the Prix Foy on Arcs Trials Day and did not. And I think that's a big disadvantage for Adayar personally, because given that he still races a bit free in his races, I think that any experience, whether that be over course and distance at Longchamp or whether he'd have ran in another race in the UK, like God knows what, the St. Ledger or the Juddmonte, whatever it may be, I think he needed the experience to learn to settle more. We've only got to go on the assumption that he is over his injury, and the Godolphin wouldn't be running him in this if he wasn't, perfectly fit and well. But that was my opinion, Hump. Just missing that prep, it does leave a question mark over him. But I think he is the rightful favourite.
Yeah, I would agree completely with that as well. We've got to remember, obviously, he's trained by probably the best trainer in the UK, and what I believe is going to be a future great in Charlie Abbaye. Like you mentioned, He's won the King George. He's won the Derby. You know, he's definitely got the best 3-year-old form so far this year, and there's less holes in his form than others. We'll obviously discuss a bit later on. The injury worries was a big thing for me. I think, you know, is he gonna be over it? You know, obviously the ground will show that up if it isn't, but he does go relatively well on it, so I don't think that should be an issue. He looks to be quite an explosive horse as well, and I'm just wondering if the ground and the injury put together, is that going to stunt it a bit? As you mentioned, obviously he can be a bit sort of coltish, he can be a bit pulley, which when you're going into Longchamp and a lot of the start of the race is downhill, and obviously you're on the turn for a large part of that, and then you go into the fall straight and the cutaway. So he could pull his way to the front, but if there's a person you want to trust, you know, to be on his back, it's William Buick. He's absolutely superb pilot, and it was interesting to obviously read what Charlie Appleby said in the week. Obviously, William was pleased with him, so that's a big plus. Said he felt great, fresh off the back of in that easy period. And he emphasised again that Buick was really, really happy with him. So I do agree with you. I think he's a worthy favourite, and I think I'm going to, I don't know if we do this early on, but if I'm going to name my colours to the mast, he would be my winner of the race for Godolphin, Charlie Appleby, and the whole Blue organisation.
Well, yeah, feel free to put your case out there early. Humper Day are at 3-1, and I still think there could be a bit of juice in his price, to be honest. If you look, I mean, his form's so solid. I mean, we'll come on to this a bit later, but in the King George, is battered Mishriff really at the end, I thought, and Mishriff rated 122. Now, Mishriff does get found out a little bit for stamina at Ascot over that 1.5 miles there with the stiff finish, but backed up well and truly in the Juddmonte. I think Mishriff won the Juddmonte by over 6 lengths. I don't like that form personally, but just on the face of it, you know, he's been beat by Adayar, and then on his next start, he's won a Group 1 Juddmonte by 6.5 lengths. That'll do nicely. So he's got real strong form claims. Tarnawa's, they're actually joint favourites at the moment, 3-1 the pair. As I said at the start, I'm gloating a little bit, but Tarnawa was such an obvious anti-post bet for this way back in June. I'm back to her at 10-1. I think I put her up on here at 9-1, that was available at the time. A whole season has been aimed around this race. I've said all that before about her, but just on this Irish Champion Stakes, where she ran last time over 10 furlongs, the popular opinion seems to be that Tarnawa, you know, it was a perfect prep run for this. She's been carried across the track and hampered, and she's lost nothing in defeat to St. Mark's Basilica, who's possibly the horse of the year, and Aidan said probably the best horse they've ever had, blah, blah, blah. But I'm not sure if that Irish champion over 10 furlongs, where they crawled for the first half of the race, more than half of the race, and then they've sprinted for the last 2.5 furlongs. Yes, she's been carried across the track. I don't know if that's brilliant prep for this, but you know, if she can repeat what she was doing at the back end of last season, she's going to be bang near. What I would say about Tarnawa, she is yet to reach or achieve an RPR that would be good enough to win any of the ARCs in the last 10 years. She's achieved an RPR, a peak RPR of 121. That was actually last time in the Irish Champion. 122 is the lowest winning RPR of the ARC in the last 10 years. So she is going to have to perform a career best, and remember, she is giving weight to Adayar on the weight for age scale as well. So Tarnawa, fascinating contender, would be a popular winner in France despite being trained in Ireland, given that Christophe Souleymane, the man in your picture, is riding. I know he's Belgian, but he has a lot of time in France, and the owners as well. So there's quite a few connotations there for the French.
Yeah. Obviously, I think she's a Sayuni filly as well. So obviously that would be she's a Shamadal filly. Yeah. So there is look, you know, she was the bookies' favourite for a long time, and obviously she's the favourite of our friend and colleague and a flat maestro, Mr. Lee Jones. She's pretty much the media darling in this, really. I think she's definitely the one that a lot of people have latched onto from that point of view, and that may be clouding some of their judgment. Now, if you look at her stats, she's run 16 times and won 9, including 8 at group level. So, you know, 3 of those are at Group 1 level, and 2 of those are actually at Longchamp as well. So, really, I think if there's horses for courses, she's pretty much been there, seen that, done the T-shirt, bought the croissant, and bought the programme as well while she was there. There's no doubt she's trained by, obviously, the master, you know, in Dermot Weld, but I think I'm right in saying he's never won the race before, so this would be a nice thing for him as well. But you've got to wonder, you've just got to wonder, can she give the weight away? And I think that you know, she probably is good enough to do it, but I think it's it's going to be a big ask. And I was looking back through, and the last 5-year-old mare, obviously she's a 5-year-old mare now, so to win the Arc was in 1937. So you're looking so far back, and that was Corridor, who obviously won the Arc twice, but and has a Group 2 named after her now. But I agree with you. Obviously, it's been made out to be obviously an autumn campaign for her. Dermot Weld was very, very clear on that from the start of the season. So obviously the form coming into this, apart from Irish Champions Weekend, is pretty thin on the ground. And he actually came out as well and said the Arc has been the plan. It's the reason she's actually stayed in training. So I think I think if there was one race they want to win, obviously they've mentioned potentially going back to the Breeders' Cup, and also a potentially the Japan Cup. So this could be a last run in Europe as well, which would be which would be a first, a swan song as best they can. But can she win? Yes. Do I think she's going to win? No, no, not for me.
Do you know what, Hump? I 100% agree with you. I mean, my money's already on Tarnawa. I do think she can win, but would she be my bet now? Probably not. I would rather be with Adayar over Tarnawa as we speak now. Third in the market is Hurricane Lane, and been really strong in the anti-post markets this week. Hurricane Lane is 4-1 now. As short as 7-2 with others really breathing down the necks of Adayar and Tarnawa at the top of the market. We've talked about popular opinions this evening. Another popular opinion seems to be that Hurricane Lane had a pretty hard race in the St. Leger and was blowing afterwards. That was over 14.5 furlongs. He's stepping back 2.5 furlongs for this. No horse, and there's plenty tried it, as no horse has won the Leger or even ran in the St. Leger and won the Arc in the same season. Hurricane Lane's going to be trying to do that. But again, you've just got to trust what Charlie Appleby's doing. If he thinks Hurricane Lane is happy and well after his St. Leger excerpts to be taken on a test like this, then fair play to him. He's won 3 Group 1s in a row. He lost 2 front shoes in the Derby when the most fancied of the Godolphin horses, ridden by William Buick, the race that Adayar went on to win. But since then, he's been perfect. He's won the Irish Derby at the Curragh. He's won the Grand Prix de Paris by 6 lengths, with some questionable form in behind, in my opinion. And then he's gone and just dominated the St. Leger. He looked all over the winner. He was never in any doubt, and he's won that by a going away 2 3/4 lengths. He's got every chance, Hurricane Lane, Hump.
Yeah, no, I'm in full agreement with you. As you mentioned, obviously trained by Charlie Appleby, and as I mentioned before, my opinion, the best trainer in UK future. Great. Multiple group winner over the middle staying distances. The Dante as well, obviously won the Dante to earlier on in the season as well, and then he's just really racked them up since. If Adayar wasn't around, he would be the talking colt of the season, if we're being honest. Yep. He's done every dance, been every battle that he wants to be there as well. And as you mentioned, he was the choice of Buick in the Derby, so it's not like he came into the race under the radar. He looks quick enough, in my opinion, to get I'm gonna do it. This is 2,400 meters, but he looks quick enough for those 12 furlongs, and he's not afraid to go from the front. Which, in this sort of ground, we know he'll stay. And if Doyle really wants to send him, then they could use him as a they could use him as a pacemaker for Adayar, or they could let him run his own race, which is going to be absolutely fine for him. The ground shouldn't be any problem, no doubts. He's got quite a high knee action. When I was watching back at the Leger, he seems to pick his feet up quite well, which is good. He's going to be the fittest of the Godolphin too, based upon what we've seen. Obviously, like you said, he had a hard race, but and again, like you said, they wouldn't be running him if they didn't think he could win. So really, I think if he could actually win this, if Adayar is acting coltish, then he can sit behind him. If Adayar's fine, he can go ahead of him. So really, it's a really, really exciting horse for me. He's really, really quite exciting. Like you said, he has got the history on his back, though. No Leger winner, but there's no, if you were looking, I think this could actually genuinely be a 1-2 for the boys in blue, Sheikh Mohammed and Charlie Appleby, and what a feat that would be. Only beaten by Aidan O'Brien's 1-2-3 at Chantilly with Found those years ago, 2016, I think that was now.
Yeah, it certainly was. And talking of Mr. O'Brien, Snowfall is the next in the market, 11-2. We've spoke about her a lot on this channel. Won the English Oaks by 16 lengths, won the Irish Oaks by 8.5 lengths, won the Yorkshire Oaks by 4 lengths, and then it all went wrong when 1-5 to win the Group 1 Vermeil over course and distance last time. Now, just on that one last time at Longchamp, right? Frankie came out and it sounded like he tried to blame Holly. A lot of for not going fast enough on a pace setter. A lot of people on Twitter and elsewhere were criticising Frankie's ride for being too far back. Tiona who isn't running in this race, unfortunately, due to the ground, right? Tiona, a lot went wrong for Tiona that day against Snowfall, right? Um, she was boxed. She ran very free early doors. She was boxed in a little bit, had to bump her way out to go on and win that race. And Snowfall just basically finished on the bridle and full of running, which is never a good sign when you're finishing on the bridle and not winning races. So Frankie Dettori's obviously got to take some blame for that, but I don't know. She should have. I just think she got beat almost fair and square. You can make excuses about Snowfall, but like I say, you could have made excuses about Tiona if she didn't win, given what she had to put up with in the race. I always have a fear with fillies, and yes, I know that Trev and particularly Enable have come here and won on their first time against older horses and the first time against male horses. That will be the case for Snowfall. She's never faced a horse that's not her own sex and not her own age, and she's going to be getting found out. We will find out how good she is this weekend. Similar question to what I posed to SD on our last call. The best horse that Snowfall has beat fair and square is Alba Flora, rated 110. As I said a few minutes ago, Adayar, for example, he's just recently beat a horse rated 122. Snowfall, make no mistake about it, is going to need a career best effort to win this. But she is drifted. I mean, a few weeks ago, after York and before the trials day, she was about 5-2, clear favourite. She's now 11-2. So when does she become backable? That's the price. But a fascinating contender, Hump. And what was your thoughts on Snowfall?
Yeah, she really pecks my head, Snowfall. She really, really does. She's been the talking horse of the season. Obviously, what happened at Epsom was visually extraordinary. But also her price was, like as you mentioned, was extraordinarily low for her for a long period of time after that. So obviously she's trained by the trainer of all trainers. You know, she only got one loss really. I was listening to Simon Rowlands, who said that her winning margin, her actual winning margin at Epsom was only half of what it was really, and I still think, well, that was still what, a good 7-8 lengths. You know what I mean? So it's still a whacking. I take your point completely around the horse that she's beat. Obviously, I know I mentioned to you previously she has beat Wonderful Tonight, but obviously that wasn't in the ideal conditions for Wonderful Tonight. We know, unfortunately, that she doesn't take her place either, which is a bit of a shame because I think God knows what price she would have been, this weekend if the slop had come like it, as she would have wanted from that point of view. She's a good filly, and you can't argue with the results really. But like you said, coming up against top horses, colts and older horses as well, you've got to look at again Adayar, Tarnawa, and the form looks ordinary in comparison. If you want to be completely honest, she's got plenty to do to, if she wants to win this. Think what Adayar's 127, she's 121, things around that kind of. So she's got to pick it up. Obviously, she gets a couple of pounds. I think it's £4 from Adayar, but is that going to be enough? I agree with you. I think Frankie was well out of his ground talking about Holly last time. I think it was on him, and I agree with what you said about Tiona too. Travelled really, really well into the straight actually. So I think that was a fair and a square beating as well. I think if you're on at big prices, then you're very happy, and I hope you run each way. But for me, I'm against her, and I'd want some form against colts and older horses if I was to back her at what prices. I don't know what price she is now. Something
11-2
short,
she is now, yeah, 11-2.
Well.
I mean, she does become a little bit backable, but I mean, look, this is the race of all races. It's the best race of the year, and that's why you can make a case for a lot of them clearly, and that's what we are doing as we work down. As we move on, Hump, I've got no clue about Japanese form. I'm not sure about yourself, but Chrono Genesis, I'm told, or the form book tells us, is the best horse in Japan at the moment. Oisin Murphy rides, which is really quite interesting because he's got links to Japan. He's a pretty big star over there by all accounts. And former Japanese horses that have come over for the Arc and been well fancies have been ridden normally by Japanese jockeys and they've come up short. So it's quite interesting that they put a European jockey on. I mean, I would prefer them to have a French jockey on, in all honesty, because obviously they know the way around Longchamp better than young Oisin Murphy. But it's a big chance. It's a big chance for him. I really do like Chrono Genesis's form behind Mishrif earlier in the season, way back in March in the Dubai Shima Classic. I said that at the time, a neck behind Mishrif there. I thought that was great form. She's been back to Japan since then and won a proper Group 1. That was in June. So she's had a really quiet season. She's had one start in March, one start in June, and then she's coming straight here. No trial. Now, the Japanese horses normally go for the trials. This one has not. She's come straight here. Will she get the ground? I have not got a clue, because it's normally a lot quicker in Japan than it is in Paris in October. But another fascinating contender hunt.
Yeah, really, really interesting. This is the one that you've seen if you've been watching, obviously, sort of Matt Chapman, a lot of those kind of fellas, they're really into Chrono Genesis. Oisin Murphy tied himself down to this horse a long way out as well, which was obviously a good step for him. Obviously, he, as you mentioned, he's pretty big over there. They like him a lot. He gets on a lot with this sort of the Ishida family who run the Sunday Racing Co. Obviously, this is retiring at the end of the year as well, so really shooting the shot with this one. Exciting unknown, and I've wrote down here exciting unknown and a super intriguing horse. Obviously, behind Mischief in Dubai was really good. I actually spoke to a good friend, well, I say an acquaintance of mine. He's called Graham Pavey. He's on Twitter under Long Ball to No One. He's an Australian who lives in Japan, lived there for 27 years. So I wanted to get his opinion on him. He said she's very athletic and she's got great gears, but the jockey on the Dubai one said she was really tired at the end. She wasn't able to show her signature closing speed in a stretch. But they've tweaked her prep since, and they've been down in France well, and everyone seems happy there. The ground is going to be against it, if we're going to be honest, because the soft when I spoke to Graham again, he said the soft in Japan is nowhere in comparison to what they get over in France. I don't think they get it pretty much anywhere else but France. The soft ground that they kind of get from there. Look, I think well-respected judges are really latching onto her, and I think that there's something. Obviously, it was good to see Oisin get up again after his bus slip at Salisbury. Was it Salisbury this afternoon?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I've seen the clip.
Yeah, so he's looked pretty scary actually. He could have been really hurt there. So he seems to be fighting fit. He schooled her obviously on Wednesday as well over in Shanghai. He was really happy. Spoke to the media afterwards. So yeah, I think it's not gonna. You're flying in the face of, if you want an each way kind of bet, then she around 10-1 now. Again, going back to that old 5-year-old mare to win the Arc 1937, it would be a real turn up. But I think that they keep saying that she's got the best chance until Fev came over, and he went and that went pretty close, didn't it, in the end? So if that's the best chance they've had since then book her for second, beaten by a nose by something we don't expect.
Right, quickly running through the rest of them. Love's got no hope on the ground and shouldn't be running, and if she does, she's definitely got no hope. Robinar's not good enough, neither is Deep Bond. Alenquois, Alan Kerr, or however you want to say it, might get a bit of support, to be honest, with the UK form, but hasn't done enough winning, if you ask me. Mojo Star was last seen in the Ledger, second behind Hurricane Lane, 50-1. Now, for 2.5 lengths, 2 3/4 lengths, and he's 10 times the price. That might interest a few. I mean, but even with my supposed Richard Hannon bias, as what SD says, I mean, I'm going to be pushing it to be going for Mojo Star. He did travel pretty well into the Doncaster race, but he's more of a cup horse next year. For me, I think they're throwing a dart in the bolt with a blue for Mojo Star, and then it's name your price the rest hump. So before we look at the undercard hump, just give me a bit of a shout out, particularly on the French horses. Sealaway, there's been a couple of mentions for Sealaway in the chat from Berkey, one of them, and Simon Smith also mentioned as well. So yeah, let's start on Sealaway and touch on any other horses of the others.
Yeah. Fair play to the owners, I think, of this horse. Obviously, Pauline Chabot and the Arras de Goussière are having a real go at this. They put their hand up in the air to really take a punch where nobody else seems to want to. Obviously, no Farb horses, no Judmont horses as well. So they've really sort of put themselves out there. But, I mean, do you really want to be trying 2,400 metres, 1 mile 4 for the first time and possibly one of the deepest arcs that we've had in recent memory? It's bold, but fair play. We talk about the form and this, it was behind St Mark's Basilica last time, and obviously the regard that St Mark's Basilica is held in by what Aidan's come out with from the last couple of days has been quite extraordinary, really. My only problem obviously is that was in June, and it's now going to be the first weekend, the first week in October. We've really not seen him since, which isn't great. Obviously, they must have been doing a lot of work at home. Obviously, they've switched the trainer from Frederick Rossi to Cedric Rossi, so really it's not a massive change with regards to that. But I think 50s is probably about the price. Look, Rabia is probably the best French horse in the race. But I don't think that Sealaway is a bad horse. I just don't think that they've picked the right race for it. I really don't. I think it's well out of its depth, unfortunately. And that I really, like I said, I really appreciate the owners and really appreciate them throwing it in here to make up the numbers. But it's not great. The same can be said. I think we're going to talk about Baby Rider next, which is only 7 runs lifetime. 5 of those have come this year. They won the Griffon, which is the Jockey Club trial, but then he went on to finish 14th in the Jockey Club. So he was in the Grand Prix de Paris, and it was the first of the French home, but he was beaten nearly 7-8 lengths by Hurricane Lane that day. He was in next second in the Niel. Bolshoi Ballet was a non-runner obviously that day as well. And when I wrote these notes down a couple of days ago, Pascal Barry, his trainer, is absolutely wildly out of form. His trainer has not had a winner since the 4th of August,
oh, wow.
which was around 30 at the time. It was 34 runners without a winner, but he'd had a few seconds. So
he's in worse form than me.
Yeah, he's in worse form than me. Never me and you put together. So really, yeah, I think if you're looking for a French horse in this, then that's not great. The one thing that goes in Bubblegift's favour, I know he's 100 to 1 shot as well, but he is drawn in the stall that has won the most amount of races since 2000 in stall 6, which has won it 5 times. But it would be the shock of all shocks, and it would go down in history if Bubblegift was able to turn this form around.
Right, Hump. So if you have to have a bet today, right now, who would you be on?
I would do Adayar, but I'd also put Adayar and Hurricane Lane in a reverse forecast as well. I think it's going to be a Godolphin 1-2. I think that it's going to be a monumental day for Charlie Appleby, and he deserves it after the season he's had as well. What a way to finish it off.
Nice. Yeah, I'll be with Adayar as well. I've stated my anti-post position, but if I had to have a bet now, I'd be on him. It's not the most original pick. He is probably going to go a favourite, but I think he is a tank. And if he has matured a little bit since we last seen him in July and settles a bit better, I think could be very impressive. Right, we're going to go a bit on time order now, Hump, because I think there's another 5 Group 1s on the day. It's the busiest day of Group 1 racing anywhere in the world. So time order, the 1:15 UK time is the Marcel Boussac. I don't know a whole lot about most of these races in depth, but I'm going to paint the picture. Raclette, I think am I saying that right? Is the hype horse 5-4 favourite for Andre Fabre. It's been wildly impressive on 2 starts so far. But I've got a pick in this. I'm going to be back in one. John Gosden has had a pretty quiet season, all in all. To say he is the multiple time champion trainer. I know he's got the license now with his son, the real Slim Thady. He's been pretty quiet this year. I mean, other than Mishriff, not pulled up too many treats. He's got one in this, Natasha, right? He's a half sister, correct me if I'm wrong, to Al Manzour. And we know what that horse did a few years ago from France, but won the Irish Champion Stakes. They're chucking this Natasha in at a Group 1 level. She's had 3 starts. Maiden was second. Novice Stakes won by 5 lengths at Kempton, and a Novice Stakes won by 2.5 lengths at Sandown. I just think, why would they be chucking her in? I've said this before on the channel, he's not a trainer that tends to chuck horses in at the deep end, and this horse is being chucked in at the deep end following a couple of novice races. She's 12 to 1. They'll be having some of my money on Natasha. But yeah, what do you make of the favourite and the others in this one, Hum?
Yeah, obviously we're working off the final decks for the Boussac. I know the supporting races are only tomorrow, so things could change. Obviously, just want to get the disclaimer out there nice and early because we never know. Raclette, the quote that Fabre came out with was, I know I've said it a couple of times but it was extraordinary. Where he said she's probably one of the best fillies I've ever trained. She's got everything. Now, this is a man that's seen probably tens of thousands of horses passing through his yard, in his lifetime. And obviously, when he says that, you have to listen. But she has only won a Class 2 event. And, a best win is at Class 2 level, and that's French Class 2 level as well. As a French homer, I'd say, French Class 2, not bad, yeah. And she won it in a canter, which is fair. But, she's an absurd price, really, isn't she?
Really short.
At 10 to 11, I think that's an absurd price. You probably get bigger on the day, so I'd obviously hold your powder up until that point. But I think at 10 to 11 winning a Class 2 event, I have got visions elsewhere. Obviously, Agatha is in for Joseph. And now this is group form. This is, albeit over 7 furlongs, it's group form that we're getting into now. So she could step up without a problem and get involved in this. Acer Ali was the one I was focusing on. I think she's a super interesting horse. Graffard trained. Obviously, Graffard is one of the best up and coming trainers in France, which is a positive. won at the course last time out. Positive, that's good. It's got form with El Bodegan, who actually won earlier on this week in France for James Ferguson, which is quite good. And obviously, New Science was in behind as well with making movies. The Wizard of Eye, who potentially could run in the Lagardere as well. I think Acer Ali's got a really, really good chance from that point of view.
10-1.
I mentioned, yeah. I think he. I think, obviously it's for Mary Fox, who I think that's a UK stud, so that's an interesting runner for them. There wasn't Fab's other runner, Fleur de Ris. He upset Zelly last time, so the price is about right that they've got there, and that was in Paris over 1600 as well. At the mile. So if you're looking for a clean cut course and distance, when then she's your filly. But
I watched that race back, Hump. That Zelly is entered to running this year.
Yes, correct.
So came from a mile back because that Godolphin horse was leading. It was a funny race, that. Both the Farboroughs, aren't they? Yeah.
But I think, and you're taking a knock on the price because it's Farb and Godolphin as well. You are probably going to get Barcelona on that should she be declared. But I wouldn't disagree with you on Natasha. She's definitely in at the deep end. My notes were strength of the UK fillies, is to be confirmed. Really, obviously we've seen Oscula's run more times than I have this year, and I go out running 3 times a week. So. I don't think you're gonna get anything from her. Who knows is interesting. Going on the Wizard of Eye line. Recent purchase for this Sheeder family. They like to buy one before the art weekend, but that's a real outside. I think if I was to pick one in this race, it would be Acer Ali, probably in each way price, and I think she will drift on the day. So I think you'll see the Gosden, your Gosden horses come in, your 2 Farb horses. Your 2 outside Farb horses will probably, come in a tad a bit as well. So you could see big on Acer Ali, and I'd go with her in this race.
Sounds, that's a nice 10-1 selection there from Hump. Right, moving on, the 155, the similar to the race we've just mentioned, but this is the Jean-Luc Lagardere 1 mile for 2-year-olds Colts Group 1. 7 furlongs, right. Ebro River has got Group 1 form. He's won a Group 1 over in Ireland. The Phoenix Stake, that was over 6 furlongs. He didn't run last week in the Middle Park, also over 6 furlongs because the ground was quick. He wants softer ground. He's going to get softer ground. I do think the 7 stretches him, and he didn't quite get it at the Curragh, but that's strong form at the Curragh in the National Stakes. I was there that day. Native Trail, you know what I think about that horse, and Ebro River pushed him quite a long way. At the furlong pole, Ebro River was probably going better than Native Trail in that race before he faded out. 7 furlong does stretch him, but if there's anywhere where Ebro River's going to get 7 furlongs, it probably is Longchamp because it's a pretty easy 7 furlongs. So he's 5-2 favourite, Ebro River, possibly a little bit short in this one. I just think we've mentioned Charlie Appleby a few times. He's got a great handle on for 3-year-old Group 1 form, 2-year-old Group 1 form, and Noble Truth is going in here. I think he's won this race before, Charlie Appleby, and Noble Truth is a much bigger price at that, available as big as 9-1. That'll be where my money is going on this. But Ebro River does set a good standard for me, Hump. And talk to me about Stone Age, who has been supplemented by Aidan O'Brien.
I'll be honest with you, I really didn't take much of a look of a Stone Age, to be honest. Obviously, second in the Leopard's Town Group 2, last time behind Atomic Jones. It was, only beaten ahead, but I think he was nobbled as well. I think he was nobbled on the line, unfortunately, in that race for him. But I was the one I was. Yeah, I agree with you on Ebro River. I think he's got the best form in the race. The 7 here probably is gonna be just about right for him. I agree with that. Obviously, the positive is in the Phoenix and ran well, probably behind the best 2-year-old, as you mentioned, in the National. Ground won't be an issue, which is good for him as well. He's a short price, but I think coming up against some of these, I think that price is actually is pretty fair, to be honest. Akbar is interesting of the French ones for me. Obviously, she's a filly running in this race, so she'll get a couple of pounds for that. And she did beat Fleur de Ris, who obviously, as we mentioned, could win the Boussac there. So that would be a nice little bit of form there, and that was on softer ground as well. So of the French one, she's probably the best Ancient Rome. You're taking a cut on price because it's Coolmore and Coolmore and Farb there from that point of view. Appleby was positive enough when I listened to the Nick Look podcast on Noble Truth, and obviously he wasn't too enthusiastic, but obviously we've seen since then. Obviously he was whacked by Royal Patronage when they were up at York, but obviously Royal Patronage has gone on and done the business. Only last weekend I think it was it? And he
don't mention it. Don't mention it.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, but in the Royal Lodge, so there's more group form from that point of view, albeit obviously behind Ebro River. I just don't. Angel Blue, who's in there as well, won the Vintage of Goodwood, but has been beaten by New Science, so it's pretty hard to nail him down. But I think that I think I'm with you with Ebro River with regards to sort of the German horses. I'll be honest with you, I've got absolutely no clue on German form. So Rocky Gianni and Arnis Master are there, but it's interesting that Aidan O'Brien took two horses out and then still put Stone Age in. So you've got to be wary for, especially with these connections. Obviously, the Peter Brand colours that won the Arc last year, but I think if you're looking for a win selection, it would be Ebro River. But keep an eye on Akbar to give him a proper race.
Yeah, I like it. Right, moving swiftly on to the L'Opera, the 10 furlong Group 1 for fillies, a race won last year by Tarnawa, but I will say this year's renewal is no way near as strong as last year's, to be honest with you. A couple for me, the first one, Ambition, is available at a decent enough price. Ambition was fifth in this race last year. She's available at 25 to 1 still and shortening. That 25 to 1 is shortening and will be gone, I reckon, before race time. But yeah, Ambition beating this race last year by only 3 lengths by Tarnawa, and then ran has only had a couple of starts this year, most recently in the Prix Jean Romney, if I'm saying that right, Hump, probably not, where she was doing all her best work late in that race, and I thought that was a messy race. Like I say, Ambition's 25 to 1. She's pretty lightly raced. She's really, really, really well bred. The bar weight out of a Epsom Oaks winner in talent at 25 to 1. She was definitely where my money was going in the L'Opera.
Yeah, I know it's not the highest quality, but I think it's a really competitive race. It's going to be a really good race to watch. There's a lot of these in with form, especially from the French point of view, with form against each other. So they've been kind of beating up on each other really, which is good. I'll put a disclaimer out. I bet Sibylla Spain each way for this race earlier on this week at 12 to 1. So given the ground, I'm hoping the rain continues to come for Sibylla Spain. She definitely prefers the softer surface. Christopher Head, who trains, obviously is part of that dynasty, and he's happy with how she's been, which is really good. If she gets a lead, she could be hard to peg back, and does get a small swing from the older fillies, which is good as well. Obviously, we know that Adayar was third last year and was second in the Romney. She is a Breeders' Cup winner, but I'm happy to oppose her, to be honest. I think she didn't pick up as well as I thought she would, obviously, in the Romney, but that is what it is. I know I was watching the previews. Sean Boyce, who I like as a judge, put up Burgerita. Now Burgerita was obviously in the Arc as well at one point. Thought to be a runner in that, but they're dropping back to 2,000 meters, and that could easily be a best trip. It's we're rattling through them, but obviously it's interesting to see that the Prix de Diane winner Joan of Arc is only the third favourite for this, and obviously she won that earlier on this season, beating plenty of them, Sibylla, Burgerita, Rougier, Incarville. But really, she has gone on such a downward spiral since then, and she was seventh in the Vermeil, which is a really, really poor result. Now, whether there's reasons behind that, we don't know. Obviously, that's that's one of the things that Aidan probably won't give out. But I think the last one to mention is Incarville, who obviously won the Alare, but and again has really dropped in form since finishing fifth, seventh, and seventh. So obviously, I'm going to stick with my Sibylla Spain each way, but obviously it's a bit of an after time. She's bigger. She was bigger when I backed
I'll
her.
give
But
you
there's
credit
definitely
because you text me about it. It was 12 to 1.
yeah.
So yeah, I'll give you credit for that.
But I do think that obviously Grand Glory won only, and she didn't beat sort of Sibylla Spain and Ambition by far. And you can get, you're looking at nearly 4 times the price for Ambition. So I think you've picked a nice one there as well for people who are looking for a bigger price.
Yeah, I like Ambition. Right, 2 races left. The Prix de l'Abbaye. This is one of the most lottery-type races in the whole calendar. It's chaos. They run it in the middle of the track. It's like being at Sandown. They run it in the middle of the track. You can't see what's going on. And it normally throws up some results. Glass Slippers has won this before, and he's well fancied in the market. Swazar is going to be the favourite for the home team. Won at Goodwood earlier this year pretty impressively. Soft ground, Dempere will love that. Winter Power, the Numfort winner, but bombed out in the Curragh Flying 5. But it's the Curragh Flying 5 that is going to provide you with the winner of this race, because there's a horse called A Case of You that was been supplemented for this race, and I thought she was massively underestimated in the Flying 5. She was 33 to 1 and finished second, just half a length. Had to run round she had to run the long way round, basically. A case of you, and I've just called her she, even though it's a he. Yeah, had to run the long way round. 3-year-old, improving all the time. That was by far and away his best effort last time out, and he could be any price you like. I'm just waiting for the supplemented horses are a bit late to come into the market. I don't think she's even in the market yet. A case of you, but if we are going by the price of Romantic Proposal, which won the Flying Five, was first, and the Case of You was second. Romantic Proposal is 10-1, so I'd expect a Case of You to be at least a bit bigger than that. That would be where my money's going. But I'm kind of expecting that this might not be your type of race, Hump.
No, I'll be honest with you. What I will say is, obviously, 5 of the last 6 winners have been trained in the UK. So I think if you're going to turn the tide with Swayze, it's going to have to be a big old performance. The draw is so key to this race, and obviously we don't know that yet. We'll only find that out tomorrow. You really want to be drawn low, and it's so difficult to predict sprinters at the best of times. Then around on soft ground in the middle of Paris, in the middle of, at the start of October. Now, I will say Swayze is very, very short, and if we're thinking back to Swayze, considering the price and the way she performed at Ascot on the ground at Ascot, I think it won't be potentially too far different from that. And obviously, that was her her first real time away from France, so there's bits in there that we can really pick at. But I think the ground would be an issue. The trainer's obviously very happy, as you would expect, but yeah, the ground concerns from that. Obviously, you mentioned a message to you earlier on the week saying that I understood that Case of You was going to be supplemented, and I agree with you that the form from Ireland is definitely going to be sort of the ones to look at. Now, I'm not expecting, I don't know if we've heard any more, but I'm not expecting Winter Power to be running in this. She's priced up. The horse is priced up there. Benoit is interesting, but I just, the French sprinters just don't give me a lot of confidence, if I'm honest. And I think it's a race that I'm not overly fond of. But I tell you what, why not go all out and just have a combination tricast of A Case of You? The first 3 from the from the Irish race, from the why not throw them all in, have a couple of pennies on that, the Flying Five first 3 and see what you get from there, really.
Oh, that's wild, Hump. Just on the Abbaye, I mean, the only favourite to win in the last 10 years was Batash, in one of the best performances you'll ever see in a sprint race. But yeah, I mean, we've had results 14-1, 25-1, 16-1, 12-1, 13-2 last year. I mean, yeah, it's very, very draw dependent, and yeah, pretty wild Group 1 contest. Right, the last Group 1 at Longchamp is the 5 o'clock on. It's actually on Sky. This isn't on ITV. The Prix de Foret, but yeah, the only 7 furlong Group 1 race in Europe, so really quite a specialist race, and I think there's a definite case to have a Group 1 over 7 furlongs in the UK, but that's probably for another day. So is this the final field we're looking at now, Hump?
No, again, this is another one tomorrow as well. Right. And I will, just a disclaimer, remember the second winning post. Please remember the second winning post if you are watching this race.
Yeah, I mean, we've got sprints being ridden in the middle of the racetrack, and 2 winning posts on the same track. I mean, that baffles me. I don't know the reason behind that.
But, almost like Sandown over the jumps.
Yeah, but Space Blues is the to be honest, he's the best 7 furlong horse in Europe, isn't he? I mean, that's why he's 9-4 in the anti-post markets. Again, this isn't the final field. I didn't really have a strong pick in this, but I did land on one, Hump, and that is he's got a bit to do. Like Njord for Mrs. Harrington. She's just been flying recently, hasn't she? Harrington over in Ireland. Plenty of winners on Irish Champions Weekend, etc., etc. Yeah, I think that Njord's been ran really quite well in the Group 2 at Leopardstown on Champions Weekend. Again, it was another pretty messy race. He was short of room that day, and has been contesting handicaps. Was earlier on as recently as June this year. But yeah, it's pretty. It's got a lot to do, that kind of selection. But it's before the final field's out, I didn't have a concrete selection, Hunt. But anything from yourself in the Foret?
Blues wins, to be honest. Like, I think he's the, he is the 7 furlong specialist. It's actually crazy to think that he hasn't actually run in this race before, which is a bit bananas to me, considering how long he feels like he's been around. Best form, and was probably the best horse in the race. What I will say is the draw is pretty interesting here as well, because it's a really short run downhill into the bend. So if you're drawn low, you almost sort of shoot yourself into the bend and get a bit of a sling, like a Lingfield sling around the first bend. So it's interesting from that point of view, and it's actually quite a long way home. It's a good 3.5 furlong sprint to the winning post, so you have to be a real 7 furlong specialist to get it. But yeah, Space Blues is the one for me. He's probably his closest challenger in Mariana. Foot was withdrawn, so the door is open. I think they've got, obviously, the ground has really put them off Mariana Foot, and it would have been the 9th win if they'd have come through on the bounce on that one. So that's quite incredible, really. Sagamir is the best of the French, unbeaten at 7 furlongs and gets the weight, but is the form really up there with Space Blues? No, not for me. Stick with what you know in Space Blues. I know obviously they were mentioned for Kinross in the
chat.
In the chat there, yeah. The Goodwood form, obviously, that is interesting. He's an interesting horse, and I think it was pinned by I'm going to call him Ralph because his name's Ralph.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say they pinned that nice and early, and then they had a good blowout at Deauville over the in the Maurice de Geest, where I think he finished 5th. Not being
I think he ran okay there,
Yeah, he did, and it's interesting from that point of view as well, because he also beat your interesting selection, Njord at Royal SD Park over 7 furlongs on good to soft ground in the the John O'Gaunt? I think he won it. I think he won that. I think he won that
John
day.
O'Gaunt, at Haydock.
So he's got form and that Haydock's good to soft. So that means it must be that's probably not far off what you're going to get in France at the time. But yeah, I think from my point of view, it's stick with what you know in Space Blues. But again, this is a race that's going to probably be dominated at least in the first 2 or 3 by the British horses. And I will say that I have now finally given up my Thunder Moon addiction, because that horse it's bled me dry.
Well, I had a little bit of faith in him. I've not backed him many times, if at all, this year. But I've had my eye on him. But yeah, he's gone. He's certainly not gone forward this year, has he? SD did text me earlier. He said he likes Onassis in this race at 50 to 1. Charlie Fellows, he likes Charlie Fellows, and he hopes that Hayley Turner takes the ride on Onassis. I think she's got absolutely no chance whatsoever. But it would be a tentative selection from me on Njord at 16 to 1. So, right, Hump, I know we've not got the final field, but what would be your best bet of the whole day for Longchamp on Sunday? I don't care what race it is, and I don't care what price it is. Give the viewers a winner.
I'm going to go for the Godolphin reverse forecast in the Arc. I'll go Hurricane Lane Adayar in the Arc as the best. If you want a next best, I do think Abbaye has a good chance potentially of turning Ebro River around in the Jean-Luc Lagardere, should she run. There is another one. Obviously, we're losing Alain de Roy de Prey at the end of the season. He's retiring at the age, I think he's about 157 now, so he's done well to keep going for so long. He still rides out every day. You see him on his horse on Les Aigles. But Delawaire is interested in the Daniel Wildenstein, and I think that could be a good bet against the Revenant and the Real World for him. I think they're probably going to want to send him out with a winner.
That's on Saturday, isn't it?
This weekend. That is on Saturday. Yes, that is.
Delawaire is 7 to 1 available with one of the Cowboys on Oddschecker, so do keep an eye on that price. But
yeah, I think he obviously we know that the Revenant likes,
wins that
can
race
come
every
out
year.
Fresh and win every year. Yep. But you've also got in there Victor Ladorum, who's past the best, and Century Dream, you probably will appreciate the ground. So really, if they can beat the Revenant, I think Delaware has got a good chance, from my point of view. But yeah, and I also want to mention it's a shame that Free Win doesn't run in the Royal Year, because that would have been an absolute cakewalk without Rabiha.
Yes.
But yeah, so if you want the best bet, yeah, the Godolphin horses in the Arc.
Great stuff.
Reverse forecast.
Great stuff. Well, thanks for coming along, Hunt. We've done a good 50 minutes there on the Arc on Sunday. Plenty of action here on doubles and trebles as usual. And thanks for the guys in the chat as well. Been some of the regulars in there. We've got Stephen D. I think that might be SD. We've got Simon Smith, Paul Harris, Joe Wall, Berkey's in there. Lee Jones is in there. I think we had Brendan in there earlier as usual. So yeah, thanks for tuning in. And good luck with all your bets on Saturday and Sunday. And hopefully this time next year, Hump, we will be in Paris and we can do a live broadcast from Paris. But
well, I will. You go on the day. Yeah. I'll be there. And you can ring me whilst I'm there.
One can dream. So we'll see you next year.